In the summer of 1898, a wealthy electrical engineer named James Ward Packard drove his brand new Winton automobile out of Cleveland, heading home to Warren, Ohio. He had paid $1,000 for the vehicle, a fortune at the time. The journey was supposed to take a few hours. Instead, it became an ordeal of breakdowns and overheating. Just a few miles from home, the engine gave out completely. James sat on the roadside, watching as a team of horses arrived to tow his expensive new automobile the rest of the way. He wrote in his diary that night, with characteristic brevity, "Went to Cleve, came down in new motor carriage. Hard trip, towed in." James Ward Packard was not a man who accepted failure easily. Born in Warren in 1863, he had graduated from Lehigh University at just 20 years old with a degree in mechanical engineering. Together with his brother William, he had founded the Packard Electric Company in 1890, manufacturing incandescent bulbs and electrical equipment. The business thrived as power grids spread across Ohio. James possessed a mind that saw the world through precise measurements and calculations. When something didn't work properly, he took meticulous notes. When the Winton continued to malfunction, he returned to Cleveland again and again, documenting every problem. On one of these repair trips in early 1899, the confrontation happened. James suggested several improvements to Alexander Winton, the car's designer. The conversation did not go well. Winton, who ran one of the most successful automobile companies in America, was not interested in criticism from a customer. The exact words may be lost to history, but the message was clear. If James thought he was so smart, he should try building a better car himself. What Winton didn't know was that he had just challenged someone who never backed down from an engineering problem. James wrote to George Lewis Weiss, a major stockholder in Winton's company, on April 11, 1899. Weiss owned Winton No. 4 and had become friends with James during those many repair visits. The letter was carefully worded, but its intent was unmistakable. James proposed they start their own automobile company. He had already sent his brother William to Europe to study the latest developments in automotive engineering. Within weeks, the partnership was formed. They recruited William Hatcher, a talented mechanic from Winton's own shop, and began work in a corner of the New York and Ohio Company building in Warren. On November 6, 1899, the first Packard automobile rolled out onto the streets of Warren. It was a simple buggy-style vehicle with a single-cylinder engine, tiller steering, and 2 speeds that could reach 90 miles per hour. The Warren Daily Chronicle reported that the motor was pronounced superior to any on the market. James made his first investment in company shares that day, paying $250 alongside his brother. The model sold well. Orders began arriving from across the state. But Warren, Ohio was not the future of the automobile industry. Detroit was where the components were made, where the skilled workers lived, where the money flowed. In 1902, the business name was formally changed to the Packard Motor Car Company. A wealthy Detroit businessman named Henry Bourne Joy had bought a Packard while visiting New York City. He was so impressed that he traveled to Warren to meet the Packard brothers. Joy saw potential. He convinced some of Detroit's wealthiest families to invest: Truman Newberry, Russell Alger Jr., Philip Macmillan, Dexter Ferry Jr. These were names that meant something in Detroit society. Their money would transform the small Ohio operation into something far grander. In March 1903, the company purchased 40 acres of land along East Grand Boulevard in Detroit. The location was deliberately chosen. It sat on a prestigious street in what was becoming an upscale neighborhood. More importantly, it had direct railway access. Henry Joy, now general manager, hired a 34-year-old architect named Albert Kahn to design the factory. Kahn was relatively unknown at the time, but he had radical ideas about industrial construction. He proposed using reinforced concrete instead of the traditional brick and timber. This was the first time such construction would be used for an automobile factory in America. The design called for a hollow square layout, 400 feet on each side, with manufacturing taking place in the outer buildings and finishing work in the center. Natural light would flood the workspace through enormous windows. construction was completed in just 90 days. The Warren factory was dismantled, packed onto trains and shipped to Detroit. When the new plant opened, the Detroit Free Press called it one of the most modern and best arranged factory plants in Detroit. That first building offered 10,000 square feet of floor space. Within 7 years, it would expand to 33 acres. By 1916, it covered nearly 60 acres. The original brick and timber buildings from 1903 were demolished to make way for more reinforced concrete structures designed by Kahn. The architect's career was launched. He would go on to design hundreds of factories, but the Packard plant remained a landmark of his innovative approach. James Ward Packard attended the opening ceremonies in Detroit, but something had changed. The company he had founded was becoming Henry Joy's vision. Internal tensions grew. George Weiss resigned in November 1902. William Hatcher followed in January 1903. James himself submitted his resignation in July 1903, though he withdrew it at Joy's insistence. His brother William left to run the lamp operation. In October, James received word that his mother had died. He returned to Warren immediately for the funeral. He never again took an active role in running the company, though he remained president in name until 1909 and kept his stock. The motor car company would bear his name, but it would be built by others. If you're enjoying this journey into forgotten automotive history, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story about the incredible machines and people who shaped our world. Under Henry Joy's leadership, Packard became synonymous with American luxury. The company's slogan was genius in its simplicity: ask the man who owns one. It suggested such confidence in the product that no advertisement could compete with the testimony of actual owners. Packard delivered on that promise. In 1901, they became the first American car manufacturer to use a steering wheel instead of a tiller. In 1904, they released the Grey Wolf, a 4-cylinder aluminum speedster that became one of the first American racing cars available to the public. The Grey Wolf set records at Ormond Daytona Beach, covering a mile in just over 62 seconds, but the car that truly established Packard's reputation appeared in 1915. Chief engineer Jesse Vincent had been studying engine design, particularly the problem of vibration. He liked the 12-cylinder layout for 3 specific reasons: performance, smoothness, and silence. The vibratory forces from one piston rising would be neutralized by equal and opposite forces from another. Vincent proclaimed the torque was 50% better than a V8 engine and 100% better than their previous 6-cylinder. Henry Joy called it the greatest piece of machinery that ever went upon the highways. They named it the Twin Six. The 1915 Packard Twin Six cost $2,750 for an open touring car. The Imperial Limousine cost nearly $5,000. These were extraordinary sums when the average American worker earned perhaps $20 per week. But to Packard's clientele, the price seemed almost reasonable compared to custom-built European luxury cars. The Twin Six could accelerate smoothly from a crawl while starting in top gear, despite weighing over 4,000 pounds. The engine ran so quietly that passengers reported barely hearing it. Packard had to increase its workforce by 50%, adding 5,500 workers, and invested $1.5 million expanding the East Grand Boulevard factory, the wealthy and powerful noticed. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia ordered a Twin Six with the front wheels replaced by skis and tracked rear wheels for winter travel. When he took delivery, mechanics took it for an unauthorized test drive and crashed it into the moat of the Imperial Palace, disturbing the Emperor's goldfish. They were fined, but the Emperor soon owned one himself. An oil-rich Osage chief bought a custom Twin Six, wrecked it within an hour, and immediately ordered a replacement. Movie stars Mary Pickford and Charlie Chaplin drove Twin Sixes through Hollywood. In March 1921, Warren Harding became the first American president to motor to his inauguration, riding in a Packard Twin Six supplied by the Republican National Committee. The era of the horse-drawn carriage for presidential inaugurations ended that day. Between 1916 and 1923, Packard built slightly more than 35,000 Twin Sixes. When wealthy customers ordered custom-bodied automobiles, they overwhelmingly chose Packard chassis. The Japanese royal family owned 10 Packards by 1931. Presidents Calvin Coolidge, Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, and Dwight Eisenhower all preferred Packard's. Joseph Stalin received a Packard 12 as a diplomatic gift from President Roosevelt in 1935. Stalin, who loved automobiles generally and Packards particularly, treasured it. The factory on East Grand Boulevard became a city within a city. By the 1920s, it sprawled across 80 acres, with 80 different buildings connected by a maze of corridors and assembly lines. Workers entered through multiple gates, depending on which section employed them. The administration building stood as an elegant fortress at the western edge of the complex, its classical facade suggesting permanence and prosperity. Packard automobiles emerged from the factory in an endless stream, each one hand-finished with meticulous attention to detail. Then came World War I. Packard, like other manufacturers, converted to military production. The twin-six engine was adapted into the Liberty aircraft engine, which became the most important single output of American wartime industry. Packard produced these engines before most other companies had even begun conversion. The experience positioned them well for the post-war economy. In 1924, they introduced the straight-eight engine as V12 engines temporarily fell from fashion. The company continued innovating. In 1939, Packard became the first automobile manufacturer to offer air conditioning as an option, though it was expensive and bulky. The 1930s brought both triumph and the seeds of future trouble. Packard reintroduced the 12-cylinder engine in 1932, initially called Twin Six, but renamed the 12 in 1933. The engine grew from 6.2 liters, producing up to 180 horsepower. The Great Depression had devastated Packard 6, priced at just $1,200, commanded by the luxury models. More affordable factory running when exclusive luxury cars alone would have bankrupted the company. But something crucial was lost. The affordable models and the expensive models began to look similar. The exclusivity that had made Packard desirable to presidents and movie stars started to erode. If anyone could afford something that looked like a Packard, what separated it from Chevrolet or Ford? The brand's carefully cultivated image of unattainable luxury began to blur. World War II brought another production shift. The factory stopped making automobiles entirely and focused on war material. Building number 22 became the birthplace of the Packard V1650 Merlin engine, a licensed version of the Rolls-Royce Merlin that powered the legendary P-51 Mustang fighter plane. Packard built 55,000 of these engines. The Merlin-powered Mustangs changed the course of the air war over Europe, escorting bombers deep into German territory and achieving air superiority. Every time a Mustang's engine roared to life, it bore the mark of Detroit engineering perfected on East Grand Boulevard. When peace returned in 1945, Packard faced a changed world. The luxury car market had been fundamentally altered. Cadillac, Lincoln, and Chrysler had spent the war years planning their post-war models. They emerged with modern designs and aggressive marketing. Packard's challenge was that their pre-war styling looked dated, and retooling was expensive. In 1946, they introduced new models, but the designs were conservative. The 1948 model, based on a pre-war show car called the Phantom, was nicknamed the Pregnant Elephant due to its bulbous styling. Despite the unflattering nickname, sales reached 116,000 cars in 1949. Management made a fateful decision. They would drop their luxury-priced models to compete with the Big Three. It was a reasonable business decision. The volume was in the middle market, but Packard without a flagship luxury model was like a crown without jewels. Sales began falling. In 1950, they sold 104,593 cars. By 1954, that number had collapsed to just 31,291. The hope was that combining resources would compete with Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. But Studebaker was struggling too. Their South Bend, Indiana factory was outdated, and labor costs were high. Packard's military contracts had dried up. The banks refused to lend money for retooling. Unsold cars clogged dealership lots. Quality control suffered as the company cut costs. In 1956, the decision was made. Production in Detroit would cease. The last true Packard rolled off the assembly line at the East Grand Boulevard plant on June 25, 1956. Some cars bearing the Packard name were assembled in South Bend until 1958, but these were essentially rebadged Studebakers. The genuine article, the heir to James Ward Packard's vision and Henry Joy's ambition, died that June day in Detroit. 11,000 workers lost their jobs when the plant closed. For many, Packard was all they knew. The company had maintained higher seniority rates and retained employees longer than anywhere else in the auto industry. Generations of families had worked there. The neighborhood around East Grand Boulevard had grown up serving the factory. When Packard closed, the economic foundation of Detroit's East Side crumbled. About half the empty plant was leased to various corporations for manufacturing and warehousing. Some businesses operated there until the late 1990s. Chemical processing occupied space for 52 years before vacating in 2010. Parts of the complex were renamed the Motor City Industrial Park, but it closed in 1999 when the city shut it down. In the 1990s, the abandoned buildings hosted underground rave parties and techno events. The Spastic Party, hosted by Richie Hawtin, became legendary in Detroit's electronic music scene. The cathedral-like spaces, with their soaring concrete ceilings and industrial decay, provided an otherworldly atmosphere. The city claimed most of the property in 1994, after owners failed to pay back taxes. Over the following decades, the Packard plant became perhaps the largest abandoned industrial site in North America. 3.5 million square feet of factory space slowly surrendered to time and weather. Scrappers stripped anything valuable: copper wiring, steel beams, fixtures, equipment. Arson consumed sections of buildings. Vandals covered walls with graffiti. The iconic bridge that spanned East Grand Boulevard, displaying the Packard name, became a symbol of Detroit's industrial decline. Photographers and urban explorers made pilgrimages to document the ruins. The plant appeared in countless articles about Detroit's fall from grace. In 2013, a Spanish developer named Fernando Palazuelo purchased the majority of the site for $405,000 at a county tax auction. He announced ambitious plans to spend $350 million transforming the complex into a mixed-use development, with shops, restaurants, event space, apartments, and art attractions. Years passed. The promised. Palazuelo rebranded it as an industrial distribution center. The city sued him in March 2020. Hazard, on January 23rd, collapsed. The bridge over East Grand Boulevard collapsed. My Pala's ruins across the pavement. It was owned jointly by Palazuelo's companies. Mayor Mike Duggan called the Packard plant a source of national embarrassment and a weight around the neck of Detroit's recovery. Yet not everything was lost. Building 22, where the Merlin engines were built during the war, was purchased in 2014 by the Display Group, a Detroit events company. They spent $750,000 renovating it into their headquarters. The building had never fallen into the same decay as the rest of the factory. Its more modern construction and smaller size allowed it to be maintained. Today, the Display Group uses it for audiovisual production, custom fabrication, warehousing, and creative event furniture. They added a full-service digital broadcasting studio and helped produce the reopening celebrations for Michigan Central Station in 2024, broadcasting a concert featuring Diana Ross, Eminem, and other stars. The Packard plant stands now as both monument and warning. Albert Kahn's reinforced concrete structures, revolutionary when built, have proved remarkably durable even in abandonment. Some buildings retain their basic integrity after more than a century. Others are shells, their roofs collapsed, their windows empty sockets staring at the Detroit sky. The sheer scale of the complex remains overwhelming. Walking through the ruins, it feels impossible that such an empire could vanish so completely. James Ward Packard died in 1928, never seeing the company's greatest triumphs or its ultimate failure. He spent his final years in Warren, Ohio, far from Detroit. A man who measured everything precisely, who logged hill climb times with passengers aboard, who took meticulous notes on engine performance. He commissioned some of the most spectacular watches ever made from Patek Philippe and Vacheron Constantin. His final commissioned timepiece from Patek Philippe in 1927 was a double-sided astronomical pocket watch featuring 500 gold stars accurately depicting the night sky over Warren, Ohio. It was a precise record of the heavens above the place he came from, created by a man who needed to know exactly where he stood in relation to the world. He died a year later. The Packard story is ultimately about American ambition, engineering excellence, and the cruel mathematics of business. A company founded because one engineer refused to accept poor quality became the preferred automobile of presidents and kings. It introduced revolutionary innovations. It built engines that helped win wars. For decades, Packard represented the absolute pinnacle of American luxury manufacturing. Then it made reasonable decisions that led to catastrophic failure. Moving down market to survive the Depression made sense. Merging with Studebaker to achieve scale made sense. But sense and survival are not the same thing. Today, Packard automobiles are prized by collectors. A 1915 Twin Six can command hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction. The Caribbean models from the 1950s are sought after as the final authentic Packards. Museums preserve these machines as rolling sculpture, testament to an era when American companies built cars that competed with anything Europe offered. The ruins on East Grand Boulevard tell a different story, one of impermanence and hubris and the relentless erosion of time. If you found this story compelling, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the forgotten corners of industrial history. These stories matter because they remind us that even the mightiest empires, even the most beautiful machines, even the most carefully engineered dreams can fade into silence.